Neil, again, this is a safe place. And just as a reminder, this basically goes on all day, Monday through Friday. So outside of the times that we are doing scripts and role play, obviously first thing in the morning, the times that we do our mastering series classes, the times that we do our 12-15 classes. Outside of that, there's open forums, and you can come online and just kind of lurk in the background and see what people are doing. And when you get comfortable enough, you can sign up to actually be on screen with open mic and be able to make your calls live, and then also get the feedback live from Neil and everybody else. So really cool to see that, and encourage everybody to jump on not only from 9 to 10, but then after we're done with our classes as well. So with all of that being said,
turn your volume up a little bit. I think that might help.
Okay. So with all that being said, today we are talking about our mastering series of classes. Today is mastering contracts. And we do something contract related every Monday from 10 to 11. And then on Wednesdays from 10 to 11, we do something transaction related. And then Friday, we do something building your business related, all from 10 to 11 standing appointments. So if there's anybody new to these sessions, welcome. Again, today we're talking about mastering contracts, and we're talking about the SkySlope checklists. Now, we did do a SkySlope class, and that was on our transaction platform on Wednesdays. But today we're talking more about the actual documents and contracts and what's required for those checklists. Today will probably be a little bit of a shorter session in that it's mostly just an overview. We will go live on SkySlope, show you a couple of different things, but for the most part, just want to get people some information. A question I get all the time is, what do we need for our files? What is required? Unfortunately, it's a little hard to see sometimes, in that you have to go onto SkySlope, open up a file in order to see what's in that checklist. So what we've done is we've actually downloaded those checklists, put them into our typical PowerPoint format, which we will share at the end of the class. So everybody will have those. And for each different transaction type that we have, you will have the actual checklist of what's needed. So with all of that being said, just one more quick housekeeping item. For anybody that's brand new to this, again, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 10 to 11, we are doing our new agent, and we call it new agent, but it's for agents who are new, who are recommitted, and or who haven't quite gotten the traction they want in the business. Now, these classes are open to anyone and everyone who chooses, but they are designed for our newer agents, or our less experienced agents, I should say. In addition to that, every day for 90 days, Monday through Friday, we will send out a task to agents who wish to receive them. One of the big questions we get from agents who just quite haven't gotten their feet under them yet is, what should I be doing? Well, we take that question out of the equation. And for the next 90 days, Monday through Friday, we will send you a different task via email. We usually send it out sometime between 6 and 7 a.m. And with that task, we give you everything you will need in order to complete it, whether it's a step-by-step, a how-to guide, an overview, a link to a news article, a video in a lot of cases, so that you can really start building your business from the ground up. So if that is something of interest to you and you're not currently receiving them, and right now we've got about 140 agents who are on those task lists. We have 10 different groups. Group 10 is receiving day 1 today. Group 1 is actually on day 64. So they're 2 months into this. So if that is something of interest to you, put your name and email address into the chat, and we will make sure that we will get you set up today. You will get day 1 as soon as we're done with this, and then day 2 tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So if that is something that is of interest, please put your name and email addresses into the chat, and we will get you set up straight away. For everyone else, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, we are talking about the SkySlope checklists today. So we've got some overviews on it. As I mentioned, we will go live to SkySlope in a minute or two. And let me actually just pull up Sky Slope so I have that ready. And essentially ask, what is required? What do I need? And there isn't a pre-formatted checklist that we have, because essentially what we tell you is go on to SkySlope, open up a file, and that gives you your checklist. But format, as I mentioned, we will go ahead and add this to the chat so everybody can download it and have it for future reference. Now, all of these are new for 2026, so they are fully updated, and our compliance team is constantly upgrading these things, or updating, I should say. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share. Everybody should be seeing my screen. Oops. Oops. Sorry, get that closed. There we go. Okay. So Century 21 Masters, close these. SkySlope checklists. So we've got in SkySlope, when you open a file, if you are opening a new listing, there are 7 different checklists, okay, that you will have access to. So you have to choose one of those checklists when you go in and open up your listing file, okay? And we've got one for residential listing, commercial and residential income, vacant land, REO, probate, foreclosure, bankruptcy, so a distress type sale, lease listing, business listing, and commercial lease listing. So when we say lease listing, that's going to be residential. And then finally, we've got commercial lease listing. Now, what I want to do is go over, let me just show you what this looks like when you open up a listing file. Okay, now this one's been canceled, so it's not active, but just as a reference point, let's pull that up so everybody can see what an actual SkySlope checklist looks like. And of course, it's not going to cooperate and pop up right away. It's going to take some time. So bear with me here as we get that going. Okay. Will it or won't it? Let's try it again. We need to close some of these. All right, one more time, and if not, then we'll move on. I think it's coming. There we go, finally. Okay, so this is what a checklist is going to look like if and when you get your listing and you enter it into SkySlope. And you can see we've got here, this is just on the listing side, okay? And you see we have some items kind of in the middle column where it says status, where it'll say if applicable or required. So obviously everything that is required needs to have something uploaded to that section. Now, if it's just if applicable, obviously that doesn't mean that it's not needed, assuming that it's applicable if it is. But everything that is required needs to either A, have something uploaded to it, or needs some type of an explanation as to why it wouldn't be there, okay? Let's just say, for instance, MLS printout. This is a good example. So obviously we need to upload the listing agreement. We need to upload the agency relationship, MLS active printout, okay? The seller may have chosen not to have this property listed on the MLS, okay, in which case there is no active MLS printout. So if that's the case, then what we're going to put here is we're going to put NA, not going to be in MLS, okay? And then we'll go ahead and save that. So what that does is that triggers a note to our compliance team to let them know that it's not that we don't have it, we don't want to put it in there. It's just it's not going to exist. Okay. And you'll see that from time to time with different disclosures and different documents. Okay. So if something is required and you don't have it for whatever reason, all you need to do is explain why. Okay. And in some cases, especially when you get to the transaction side of things, and we'll look at that in a little while, you may have a document that one party is refusing to sign. Okay. In which case, obviously, we can't upload something that somebody won't sign. So what we need to do is we need to have some sort of documentation that shows that we've made the attempt to have it signed and they're choosing not to. And we would upload sort of that correspondence or that email or text or whatever it might be in those cases. So we'll look at that in a little bit. Okay. Now, one thing to note is that when you do have a listing, okay, obviously that listing we're hoping and planning on getting an offer and an offer accepted. Okay. And when we do, there's a section here that says accepted contract. Okay. But you'll see it's grayed out. Okay. And the reason for that, you can see there, if I hover over it, the listing, this listing is canceled. So, and not all required documents have been uploaded to this checklist. So even if this wasn't canceled, okay, this would still be grayed out. And the reason is because all the documents required haven't been uploaded yet. So you can't move on to an accepted contract until you have filled in or uploaded all of the different required documents. Once that's done, this box will no longer be grayed out. We can go ahead and click on it and move on to the transaction portion of the checklist. That makes sense? Hopefully so. So going back to our checklists, okay, you can see here in our checklist, and you'll see when we get to the transaction, there's going to be a lot more things required or involved or entailed. But there's 26 different items in a residential listing transaction, 25 in commercial, 22 vacant land, 16 on lease, 14 on commercial lease, so on and so forth. Okay, so this kind of gives you an idea of all the different paperwork that you're going to need. And the reason that we like having everything digitized, so we don't have files that are this tall. And essentially that's where our files had gotten to be before we've tried to go, fully digital. So just as we go along and look at some of these, and we'll look at the actual residential ones a little more closely. You can see commercial and residential income. And again, these are new for 2026. So these have been updated this year. And you can see all the different things that are required. On the listing side of it, everything is basically in one grouping, okay? Just the listing documentation. You'll see when we get to the actual transaction side of things, documents are actually grouped in different or grouped together with different headings. But on the listing side, it's basically just listing documents. And you can see here, you've got ones that are required, and those match the actual dark blue required fields in the SkySlope file. Okay, the ones that are in light blue, or just say if applicable, excuse me, those are the ones that are just going to be either starred or have nothing next to them. Okay, you can see you've got your listing, probate, foreclosure, bankruptcy, so our distressed sale listing. We've got our lease listing agreement, and again, that's for residential. We've got our business listing agreement. We've got our commercial lease listing agreement, and then finally our residential listing agreement. Now, one thing to note, even though we have all of these different transaction checklists, okay, and when you open a SkySlope file, you can actually choose any one of these checklists and go ahead and start a file. Okay, please note, okay, that if you are newer to the business, that we do have parameters in terms of, yes, we want you to go out and most of our training that we are doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is catered towards residential listings and residential sales. Okay, so that's what we want people to be most comfortable in doing. However, you do, with your license, have the capability of doing commercial real estate, vacant land, business opportunities, leases, commercial leases. However, as part of Century 21 Masters, okay, we want you to be able to advertise and to be able to provide all of those different types of listing features to your clients. However, if you have not done a commercial deal or a lease deal or a vacant land or an REO or probate, okay, we highly, highly, highly recommend you reaching out to your directors and or advisors, myself, our commercial director, Jim, Keith, Matt, Robert, okay? And we'll help guide you in a way that is making sure that A, you are going to be fully capable of doing this, but also it's going to limit the liability. And in most cases, that's probably going to mean partnering with somebody who does have experience in doing these things, okay? We don't want somebody going out who has no experience and never done a commercial deal trying to go get a listing. Okay. You're not going to be able to service the client, okay, the way that client should be serviced, but also you're putting yourself and the company at a big risk and liability. Okay. So again, what we're typically going to be looking at in a lot of these things is residential. Now, let me make this just a little bit bigger so everybody can see what's on these checklists. Okay, so you can see we've got required items, the REQ, and then we've got some start items. Okay, and the start items are if they're applicable. Now, a lot of what's in the listing requirements comes in our residential listing agreement package. Okay, if you remember when we looked at that, there are several different documents that all come in that same package, including our RLA, residential listing agreement, our agency disclosure, okay, the multiple listing service addendum, seller advisory, broker compensation advisory, possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, fair housing, consumer advisory, and disclosure information advisory, okay? All of those different things come in one package. So even though it seems like a lot's required, okay, pulling up that one document and sending that to your client and getting it signed, basically will knock out most of what's required on the listing side. Okay, a couple of things that aren't are natural hazard. Okay, so that's something that should be ordered right up front, right when you get the listing. Okay, and then our property profile. Okay, and our property profile you either get from Realist or your title company. That's basically your tax record. So that's something that we want to have in our file so we know basically who's on title, what bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, all of those type of things. Okay, so those are the required items for a residential listing transaction. Okay, now some of the other things, if there are any addenda that are required, those need to be, or done, those need to be uploaded. Okay, if the property is in a high fire zone because we've already ordered our natural hazard, okay, then we have to have the fire hardening and defensible space advisory. If the seller is an entity, meaning it's a trust or a power of attorney or a probate, okay, then we need our representative capacity disclosure. All right, now that can be done on the actual listing agreement. There is a section for that, okay, but there is also additional documents that can be uploaded with that as well. If there are any advisories, okay, if it is a distressed sale, we have a separate distressed sale file. But if for one reason or another somebody didn't know that it was a trust or a probate or something of that sort and started a regular residential file, we can upload those documents later. If there's any additional agents or brokers, okay, we need to upload those documents. If the seller is going to be replacing this property and there's an addendum for that, we upload that. If there's going to be a key safe or a lockbox, okay, if there's any modification of terms, if there was a RAD form or referral fee, okay, and then any other miscellaneous documents. And then unfortunately, if this is ever canceled and or never received a ratified offer, all right, then we're going to upload any rejected offers or offers that weren't accepted and or cancellation. Okay, again, so this is the one you keep in your back pocket, okay, in terms of when you go get a listing, what's required, okay, and what's going to be required in order for this to go to the next step, okay, of an accepted contract in SkySlope. You have to have all of these with the required or the dark blue, okay, those all have to have a document uploaded to it and or an explanation of why there is not a document uploaded. And what will happen is our compliance team, if you upload it, they'll go through it, make sure all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and they will go ahead and approve it. All right. Same goes if you give an explanation, they'll go through and approve that and or ask for further documentation or further clarification. Okay. Now, our compliance team is fantastic about staying on top of these things and getting them done ASAP. So we want to make sure that we, okay, as agents are getting all these documents in ASAP. All right. Too many times we see agents wait until, right before close of escrow to upload a complete file. All right. That's not the way it works, in that doesn't meet your compliance requirements for getting the documents to us, but it also doesn't leave any room for error. God forbid something's done wrong or we need additional docs or something has to be changed. Okay, so please, please, please keep that in mind. All right, that's on the listing side. Now, on the purchase side, we actually have considerably more options in terms of checklists. Okay, you can see here we have a business purchase checklist, commercial lease, commercial sale, mixed use residential. So mixed use, for anybody that's not familiar with that term, mixed use means it's both residential and commercial. So think about like a convenience store or a corner store with a couple of apartments above, okay? Or two businesses on the ground floor and a single family home in the back, something of that sort. That would be a mixed use. We have a new home checklist. We have residential 5+ units, residential income. So residential income would be 1 to 4 units used for income. Residential lease, residential sale, which is the one that we're going to use probably 95% of the time. All right. Your sale of REO, probate, foreclosure, bankruptcy, so your distressed sale checklist, and then vacant land checklist. All right. So you can see here on the purchase side, there are considerably more documents that are required. Okay. And the reason for that is because not only are you going to have your contracts, but you're also going to have your disclosures and docs. Okay. On the listing side, it's almost purely just contract based. Okay. On the purchase side, it's going to be contract and disclosure and docs. And you can see here we got different categories, okay, of the documents that we're going to have. And you're going to see that when we look at a little bit going forward. So just to show everybody, let's go back to our SkySlope for a minute. Let's pull up another canceled document so everybody can see. So we're pulling up canceled ones that never had any documents in them. And the reason for that is just for security reasons. So this was a purchase, a residential sale 2026. Okay. And you can see here, it's broken into different sections. So here we have the buyer agreement documentation, okay, 1 through 4. All right. None of that technically is required. We've got our sales documentation. And again, this is 1 through 32, okay, different contracts and sales documentation. And you can see here the different things that are required. And we'll look at these a little more closely when we get to the actual overview of the checklist. We've got our disclosure documentation, okay? And again, this is fairly long, 1 through 24. We have our report section, all right, 1 through 19. And then we have miscellaneous, 1 through 3. Okay, different buyers to perform, demand to close, etc. And then finally, we've got our closing documentation, and that's going to be 1 through 15. So all told, okay, when we're looking at the different documentation, so our residential purchase agreement, okay, it's going to be 97 total documents, okay, that we can have. Now, with that 97, some of them are just miscellaneous. So technically, you could have well over 100 different documents in a transaction, okay? Are all of them required? No, okay? But again, it just goes to show you that our files, technically, especially if you've got a condo or a homeowners association, those files can literally be this big, okay? It is absolutely mind-boggling how much goes into a file nowadays, okay? And you can see here, some of them A commercial lease only has 25 documents, but again, on the residential sale side, 97, probate, 91, residential income sale, 80 different documents. Okay. Now, residential sales always going to have the most because that's where all of the disclosure requirements by law technically fall under. A lot of your commercial transactions don't have those same requirements. So again, all the different checklists, and they're broken apart because the checklists come from different areas and they're kind of formatted differently. They're all going to look a little bit differently in this PowerPoint, but they are broken up into the different categories, as well as noting what's required and what is only if applicable. Okay. So the one we're going to concentrate on, obviously, as we go through these, you can see, all the different ones that you'll have at your disposal for reference point. But the one that we're going to talk about, obviously, is our residential checklist. All right, so let me make this just a little bit bigger so we can kind of take a peek at it. So, and I've highlighted a couple of things because I want to show people a few of these items and talk about them just briefly. So I know this is small to see, but again, you'll have this to download and you'll be able to print it out or make it as big as you want. But just want to kind of give a quick overview. So our sales documentation, this is where all of our purchase contract items are going to be. Just like on the listing side of things, most of what's required on the purchase contract side, let me go back to the actual SkySlope file, okay, on the sales documentation, okay, the purchase agreement, the Fed reporting requirement, the agency relationship, the buyer advisory, okay, the homeowner's insurance, all of these items are contained in our package for our residential purchase agreement. So even though it seems like a lot is required on the sales documentation side, okay, most of it's contained in one little package. All right. So, and once you get that package signed, it's just about uploading those different documents to the different sections of SkySlope. Okay. Now, again, one of the things that we talked about, okay, as something that is required, okay, just like it was on our listing contract or listing checklist, I should say, there is a section for MLS, okay, in your sales documentation. All right. Well, this property could have been an off-market listing, okay, in which case there is no MLS. All right. If that's the case, then again, we're just making a quick note that it's not in MLS. Okay. And our compliance team will go ahead and clear that for us. All right. So again, if for whatever reason, okay, one of the required documents, all right, it's physically not possible to produce that for whatever reason, all you need to do is just make a note as to why. Okay. Now, just because you make a note as to why doesn't necessarily mean it's automatically going to be cleared and or we're off the hook. But it's basically, it's going to open up an avenue of dialogue for us to actually dig in to figure out why and or how we can best try and get that documentation, or if we possibly can't, we just want to make sure that we've got some sort of documentation that shows that we've done our due diligence. Okay. Now, we've talked a lot about contracts. We've talked about disclosures. We've talked about reports. Okay. But there are other documents that are party to a transaction, all right, that we maybe haven't talked about before. Okay. And some of those here, again, are highlighted. A Century 21 key disclosure. Okay. We never talked about a key disclosure. All right. And that's not technically something that is a CAR form. Okay. That's actually an internal form. All right. Now, when we did talk about SkySlope a couple of weeks ago, we did show everybody where our internal docs are located. All right. But just as a quick refresher, if we're on our SkySlope home screen and we go to working documents, okay, you can see here, we've got all the different documents. Oops. Click on Office Documents. These are all the different documents that our compliance team has put into SkySlope for us to use. Okay, so remember, we got that key disclosure. All right, so let's go ahead and look at key. and look at all the folders, and let's see, oops, where that pops up. And what you'll see is there's actually a key disclosure set up for each and every office. Okay, so if we go ahead and look at that, this is something for our buyers, okay, basically notifying them that we have no control over what's happened with keys and locks before we've handed the keys over to them. And it's basically just a disclosure advising them and telling them it's probably a good idea to go ahead and have those locks changed. Now, is this required by any law or ordinance or civil code? No. Do we want this just as an extra layer of protection for our clients and our buyers? Absolutely. Okay. So for anything that you're not familiar with or doesn't seem like a CAR form, this is where you would go and look for it. Okay. Now, again, I'm not quite sure why my SkySlope has taken so long to load, and I apologize. Let's see if we can reload it, just so everybody can see what this one looks like. Is it coming? Here it comes. Fingers crossed. Still loading. Just give it a couple more seconds and then we'll move on. So apologies for the lag time and the delay on the internet. I'm not sure if it's SkySlope or our internet here in San Francisco. Not quite sure what's going on. So, but for whatever reason, that's not loading. We'll come back to that. So a couple other things. So we know one of the things, and again, this is not required, but it's important to know that there are lots of different municipalities that have their own disclosures. Okay, there are a lot of different associations and MLSs that have their own disclosures. Okay, and for each of those, there is a section. So again, this is not required. However, it's important to know, it's important for you to go out and research and make sure that there aren't any required documents for whether the city and or the county that you're selling something in. So let's quickly go back to SkySlope, and you'll see here, again, this is our office docs. You can see here, we have a different folder for every single office that we have, okay? So if we're in San Francisco, okay, I'm in San Francisco right now, all right, we have local San Francisco disclosures, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those up. And again, things are moving really slow for whatever reason. All right, let's see, local disclosures. Okay, so for San Francisco, the one that they've pulled up is that key disclosure again. There we go. Century 21 Full Realty Services Key Disclosure Statement. So all we're going to do is pop in the address. Again, the property you're purchasing may have been previously occupied. There's no way to control who may have come in contact with the key to this property. So again, this is a Century 21 Masters or Full Realty Services disclosure, something that we provide to our buyers, okay, as part of our transaction file. So again, that's in there for everybody to use. Again, if you go to, let's just go back, our SkySlope, and you're going to choose working documents. When it opens, office documents. Now, another ones that are in there, and these are the important ones. Okay, you'll see when we get to the closing statements. Okay, this is the real important stuff: escrow instructions and commission instructions. Okay, again, these will be, oops, let's go back to SkySlope. Okay, office docs. Now you can see office docs pulls up a main folder for the company. And here we've got our affiliated business disclosure. We've got our broker demand. Okay, we've got our W-9, a request for a waiver of royalty fees. That's if you're selling your own property. And then instructions for accessing the working documents. Okay, so the big one that we want to make sure everybody knows where it is, okay, because this is how you are going to get paid once that listing or transaction closes. Okay. And this is our escrow instructions and broker demand. All right. So this needs to be filled out by you, signed by you. Okay. Sent to Randy. Okay. And then Randy and or Steve, he's delegated to sign, will sign this. And on here is all the instructions about who's going to pay for what in terms of what the buyer and seller are responsible for, what the actual commission is, where the commission should be sent. Okay, so if you don't want any delays in actually receiving your commission, you definitely want to make sure that this document is filled out, signed, sent to escrow in a timely fashion. And again, it's taken forever to go ahead and load here. So we'll just go ahead and let that load and go back. But some other things are on here. If there's any city specific disclosures or reports, for instance, in San Francisco, we are required to have an energy and water conservation report. We're also required to have a residential permit report. All right. Two big ones, okay, that most people forget. Okay. And the only time they're reminded of it and or need it is when something goes haywire. Let me make this just a little bit bigger. And that is our conversation, email, and text logs and or rejected offers. Okay. Whenever we have a listing, if we've got multiple offers, for the most part, we're uploading the offer that we're working with. Okay. The other offers usually just kind of get thrown in a drawer somewhere, or they're in our email, never to be heard from again. All right. It's important that we upload those, okay, to our SkySlope file. So we have them at our fingertips. The other thing is conversations, email, and text logs. Okay. The most of the time when there's a dispute, okay, and we have to provide all of our file and all of our documentation, what happens is agents then have to go back, and this could be a year, 2 years, 3 years prior, to look at texts and emails and call logs. Some agents don't have the same phone and they've lost a lot of those things. They've purged their emails. They're no longer using that same email. They don't know what the password was. Okay, so they don't have access to a lot of the different correspondence with their clients, with the other agent, with title company, whoever it might be. All right. So while this transaction is going on, make sure that you are documenting your file, your SkySlope file, and uploading all emails, conversations, text logs, etc. Now, there's a really easy way to do that. Okay, and here's our broker demand. Finally, it loaded. Okay, you can see here it's got all the information about our transaction, escrow officer, title company, lender. Okay, who's going to pay for what in terms of the charges. Okay, if there's any referral or relocation fees, who the agents are. Okay, those obviously are agents. And then it's signed by you, sent to Randy, and it's going to be signed by Randy and or Steve. And then once that's signed, then it's sent to escrow. Okay, and that's how escrow gets all the information about how to disperse and where all the funds go. Okay, what escrow does at that point is match them with the other side's instructions. As long as they're both in agreement, okay, then we're proceeding to close. So hopefully that all makes sense. Now, real quickly, I want to go back. As we were just talking about emails, text correspondence, and let's look at this one on Woodmill again. Every single, and we talked about this when we were talking about SkySlope and best practices and use of SkySlope. Every SkySlope file, okay, has an email address. Now this one's canceled, so the email address is no longer valid. Okay, but you can see right here it says email. Every single SkySlope file that you open will have an email address attached to it. All right. So what you want to do in best practices is every single correspondence that you send out and or receive, you want to CC to your SkySlope file. Okay. That way, at the end of the transaction, you don't have to go back and look for any emails, correspondence, and get them uploaded. You're doing it in real time. Okay. So if you are just now getting started into the realm of SkySlope, make that something you do from day one. Okay. Once you open a SkySlope file, you get an email address for that transaction. Every piece of correspondence you have simply CC that transaction. Okay, if you do that from day one, you will never have to worry about, God forbid, when there's a dispute, having to go back and look for emails, texts, phone call logs, all of those type of things. Make that your best practice that you start day one. Okay, if you take nothing away from this today, okay, make that a point. Okay, so with all of that being said, okay, those are your checklists. And again, we don't have a sort of one-page list or form that we hand out to people and say, hey, here's what you need. All right, we tell everybody, open up your SkySlope file, and that's going to give you your checklist. Okay, but we get numerous calls per week about these checklists. So finally, we've put something into a format that hopefully will help people understand what they need, what's required, and help them get their files in order before they're actually even files and ready to go to SkySlope.
Hey, so, Romeo.
Yes.
So for best practices, I'm sure I'm the only one that this happens to, is I can't remember which file these are in to go after them. So is there a way to like put them all the addresses, if I have 12 transactions this year, that all the addresses are going to be in one place, either on my desktop or on page one of my desktop, or is there a thing in SkySlope that allows us to create that and sends it there automatically when we originate it?
To our desktops, I don't know. That I will have to.
Well, it doesn't have to be desktop. I guess it could be it could be a SkySlope location.
So yeah, so when you open up your SkySlope, and I don't have any current. Let me.
No biggie. But there is a way to make sure that every time I open my computer and I want to go to SkySlope, all my properties are in there.
All your properties will be right here. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, and the same goes for, you've got listings and you have transactions. So obviously listings are listings. Transactions mean purchase contracts.
So Jackie.
So what are the questions?
You put your. Hi, Robert.
So I'm going to put in the chat that slide deck for everyone. So what are the questions, comments, concerns? We do have a little bit of time left. As I mentioned, this one today wasn't going to be too long. Just wanted a brief overview, and then ultimately want to make sure that we get this into people's hands as something that you can use, again, as a reference point without actually having to open up SkySlope and having to create a transaction in order to see what actually is required and needed. So let me go through the chat a little bit and see if there's any questions in there. But as I'm doing that, if there's any other questions that people want to ask, feel free to unmute and we'll answer it the best we can.
How long do we have to keep our files for?
Well, when you say we, meaning the brokerage, we typically, it's required to keep them for 3 years. I know that masters will typically do a purge at a certain point. I don't know if that's exactly 3 years or when it is, but depending on certain entities, at least for DRE, we're required to keep them for 3 years. IRS technically wants you to keep them for 7 years for audit purposes, but 3 years per DRE. let's see, if I have a listing, do I need to upload the buyer supplemental tax form? So on a listing, on the listing checklist, no. But when you get to the actual ratified contract and you do an accepted contract, that's going to open up a whole new checklist, the one on the transaction side. And for that, yes, the buyer supplemental tax form should be included with that. And then I see I've got commercial listing. When I asked, it was decided use the ARB form in the file, even though it is on the checklist. Are we adding it? I don't know. I'm not involved in terms of what goes into or not into the checklists. That's something that Jan and her team will put in there, and it's mostly for compliance and for keeping us sort of out of as much risk as possible. So I will definitely take that to her and ask. So the deck is now uploaded, so you're welcome to download that at your convenience. And what other questions might we have? Comments, concerns? Got a good-looking group of attendees. I got to imagine there's a couple of questions out there. Remember, my motto is the only dumb question's the one that you don't ask, because that's the one that doesn't get answered. So if anybody is thinking, you know, they got a question and they're just a little hesitant because they don't think it's a good or a quality question, I say boo to that, okay? Any question's a good question because we can get you the answer you need. Okay, well, we're not going to force anybody. So I will hang out here for a little while. If there are questions, feel free to unmute, put them in the chat. With all of that being said, if you weren't with us right at the start, in addition to these classes, okay, Mondays, mastering contracts, Wednesdays, mastering transactions, Fridays, mastering your business, all from 10 to 11. In addition to those, and those are standing appointments, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we will be here, rain or shine. In addition to that, we do have a 90-day pathway. And during that 90 days, Monday through Friday, we offer to send you a different task every single day. And with that task, we give you everything you'll need in order to hopefully complete that task and start building the foundation of your business and your real estate careers. And with those tasks come the how-to, the step-by-step, links to web pages, links to videos, different things that you will need to help complete those tasks I mentioned. If that is something of interest to you and you're not currently on that email drip campaign, please put your name and email address into the chat, and we'll make sure that we'll get you set up right when we finish this with day one and going forward, day 2 tomorrow, and so on and so forth. As we mentioned, we've got about 140 agents who are participating right now. Group 10 is received day 1 today. Group 1 is on day 64, so they're well on their way to their 90-day pathway. In addition to that, we are building out a supplement to this 90-day calendar so that once that 90-day calendar is done, you're not just left with, well, what do I do now? So that is forthcoming, and we should have that built out in the next probably week or two, because again, in the next 30 days, our first group is going to be sort of timing out of that 90-day calendar. So I will hang out here for a couple of minutes if anybody has any more questions on the SkySlope checklists or the checklist for transactions in general. Otherwise, again, if you want to be on those pathways and you aren't currently set up, put your name and email address into the chat. We will get you set up. Looks like we've got 4 or 5 more that we're setting up. Lawrence, we set you up actually last week. So Lawrence, you should have gotten an email this morning. If you didn't, check your spam or trash folder just in case. And if there is a problem and you didn't receive it, then reach out to me and we'll make sure that we'll get you set up and sent again. For everybody else, I will give you back your Monday. I wish you a great week. Remember, this is Go Mode. We've got a number of different classes and sessions for you this week. So this is just the start of it. And look forward.